All right, welcome back everyone. I hope you're not having too big of a post-lunch dip, but this talk is a bit lighter, it's a bit more fun, I would say, although there's still a few things in there like cautionary tales and inspiration, hopefully, for other types of projects that you can pick up as well. So it will be hopefully time well spent, but a little lighthearted. My name is Iulia. I am based in Amsterdam. I work with the Elastic community. We host a lot of meetups there. So I think the same as Alessandro said earlier, if you happen to come around Amsterdam and want to talk at a meetup, please reach out. We try to do them every month. And I work for Elastic. Who here has used or knows what Elastic is? Perfect. I don't have to do a whole introduction. Instead, let's start with the topic of today's talk, which is the wonderful Wrapped thing from Spotify. Who here knows what a Spotify Wrapped is? Amazing. Perfect audience. Thank you so much. So, indeed, Spotify has been coming up with this data project pretty much every year for the past, I think, 4 or 5 years, maybe longer, but it wasn't really in the mainstream until recently, of summarizing what your most listened to things were based on your profile. I have a few screenshots from my past ones, luckily, because if you don't, there's like no way to go back and find them, at least from the Spotify side, but we shall see. It used to be pretty basic. The rumor was that it started as an intern project. Someone thought it would be a fun idea and it got picked up. It would tell you your top artist, how much you listened to it. There was the competitive angle that you were in the top 0.5%, not to brag. And you would kind of get to see, what you listen to, songs, albums, genres, and you can go from there. Everyone would put them on their stories. It was a whole thing. And it was only getting bigger and bigger. If you look at the Google Trends for just the term Wrapped, not even Spotify Wrapped, you can definitely see the peaks every end of the year as people were anticipating it. They were talking about it on Twitter. They were like, oh, what's it going to be? Should I try to listen to this album the whole night just to change my Wrapped? And it was only getting more and more interesting. I think at the end of last year, it was reaching new heights. You maybe even noticed that different other companies were making memes around it. Aldi was like trying to make an Aldi Wrapped for grocery shopping, but it was just about their most liked Instagram posts. So it wasn't used to its full effect. But it was definitely a big topic of discussion in the news. Spotify was doing amazing, and what could go wrong? This was supposed to be the biggest year to date. However, there are some other things that were becoming really big towards the end of 2024 in the world of tech. Any guesses what the big trend was? AI, exactly. Enter Gen AI, which can absolutely not make anything worse, only do things better, amazing, so good. Allegedly, the rumor was that Spotify actually got rid of the team that was building the Wrapped and thought, oh, well, AI can do it, so that'll be fine. It wasn't. There was quite a lot of backlash when the Spotify Wrapped finally came out last year from a lot of really major news outlets covering this little silly music project, saying that the people were mad. They were waiting for this the whole year. They were ready to put it on their Instagram story, and it made no sense. There were 2 major issues with it that you can kind of notice. On one hand, it was just not accurate, which was already bad. I think Beyonce was everyone's number one, even though people didn't listen to Beyonce. I think Beyonce was Beyonce's number one, which didn't really make sense. So some of the data just wasn't there. The assumption was maybe the Gen AI model hallucinated some of the top and put it in there. And when it was accurate, it was still a little bit weird. So instead of going, with the trusted method of just putting a top 10 of what you listen to, it tried to do this like super fancy AI stuff. I have some of mine. My vibe apparently was Yearning Forest Afternoon and Teen Angst Modern Rock Tuesday Morning, which, it's incomprehensible. It's not really a genre that you can say, oh, I should listen to more of that. Which bands do Teen Angst Modern Rock Tuesday Morning? Doesn't work. It was weird. I was a listening vampire, so I didn't know if I was in the top percentage of Hozier fans, which is the only thing I want to know every year. I was a sound vampire. So the Gen AI thing just didn't really work out, and I think there's, some subtle examples in there of maybe it's not always the best idea to do it. But worry not, even though Spotify kind of dropped the ball, the things were already in motion. Wrapped becoming such a big thing kind of bled into other industries as well. And I started seeing it on my feed as well from different companies. So for example, I wear an Aura ring that tracks my sleep every night. And surprise, surprise, this came in my app a few weeks ago, which was, if you look at it, pretty much Aura wrapped. It told me like how much I've been sleeping, how many steps I've been taking, and it looks very much like what Spotify Wrapped used to look like back in the day. I saw this after the London Marathon. Strava partnered with Rana, I think, as well, and they got all the data from people who were training for the marathon, and also came up with a kind of a wrapped concept of how people train, just honestly general statistics about basic data that normally wouldn't be very interesting to anyone outside of this room, probably. But because Wrapped had made it more popular, it was like a really fun thing to put out and for people to consume, to get excited about and modify their behavior. So the Wrapped trend was doing great. Companies were doing it. Spotify kind of missed out on it, but maybe we can rectify that. So what we can do is we can make our own Wrapped. And in terms of making that, then we have the formula, so to say, that you can then apply to pretty much any data in your life. But let's start with Spotify. So thankfully here in Europe, because of the wonderful GDPR, most companies just have to give you their data. Some are more easy about it than others. They usually have it on their website. So for Spotify, if you just go to like account/privacy, you can say, I want my entire streaming history and just send it to me in a folder. It can take a bit to get sent to you, but you'll have it. If you don't see this on a company's website, you can just email them. I emailed my grocery store in the Netherlands. I asked for my data, and after a bit back and forth, they just send me some JSON files. So as long as you can get your hands on it, you can apply these techniques. The way it comes in, let me show you. You get a folder for pretty much every year that you've been on Spotify. So for some people, that's a lot of data in there. And they're nice enough to even give you like this little booklet about how to interpret your data. So it comes as a JSON file. You have by the millisecond all the songs that you listen to, the playlist that they were in, the unique ID, you know, a lot of data. So when I saw this, because I work at Elastic and I work with these kind of JSONs every day, I thought this is the perfect use case. I can just dump this in there and see what kind of cool stuff comes out. So that's what I did. I first started with looking at the data a bit in a notebook, in a JSON format. I saved it from there and I just took a look at it. I'm just showing a few of the fields because some of them are a bit, I guess, more personal, but in general, you kind of see what a row of the data would look like, when you listen to it, for how long. There's also information about skipping songs, where you were when you listened to that song, a lot of really cool stuff. And from there, you can connect to an Elastic cluster and just send all the data over there. And then you can create your index. I'm going to skip over this part, make the mappings for it with all the fields that you want to save. And then you can start running queries. So the very simple first one, of course, I wanted to know how much Hozier did I listen to. Spotify didn't tell me, and I really need to know. So when you run this, you get all the songs that came up, and it was 5,653 songs, which I don't know what that means in terms of other people's data, because sadly I don't have access to that. But you already start to get some interesting stuff in there. Then I realized, you know, I got all the data together from the entirety of my listening history, so it's not necessarily accurate for just the past year's Wrapped. So there's more stuff we can do. We can take a look at what were the top aggregations. So with Elastic, you can very simply make a data aggregation that takes all the different entries in your data set based on a different category. So in this case, I looked for the artist name. I added together all the Hozier and the other more questionable music that I listen to. And again, this is for like the past 5 years, okay? I was younger, it was different. So some of the stuff I don't listen to maybe anymore, but it's there. So we can go ahead and also filter to just the past year. So I have this range query that goes from 2024 to 2025, again, aggregating by the top artist. and the amount of times that I've played it, and all of a sudden Linkin Park popped up, which is interesting because I really started listening to it in the summer when the new album came out, and it just like blew over past most of my other listening for the year. So in terms of Spotify Wrapped, it would have said, okay, Linkin Park's your number one pick. But I know that that only happened like halfway through the year. So you're losing all these like little details from your history by just putting the data in a top 10. Then I thought, okay, I played it a number of times, but did I listen to the entirety of the song or not? Did I skip it? So we can do the same calculation with the same like top artist field, but I'm doing it by minutes played. And I'm getting Elastic to sum up all the minutes, all the seconds that I listen to something, and run it again. And you can see that, for example, for the top one, Linkin Park wins by number of times played, but Hozier wins by amount of pure hours of nonstop listening. So there's, again, more subtleties in there that you can get from a data science perspective. Now, this is, a nice way to look at it, but I thought, okay, the Wrapped, part of the magic of the Wrap was that you got the nice visualizations and you can share it with people, so we can kind of do that as well. If we go over to our Elastic cluster, again, some of you said you're familiar with it. Basically, Elastic is great for search. It's great for visualizing things and dashboards and some security stuff that I personally don't deal with. But the same things that we've seen in that Python script, you can run these queries directly as JSON research. So if you run this and you look for Hozier, or let's say Taylor Swift, let's call myself out here, you can see that I listened to it 666 times. That's coincidental, but it's a bit more difficult, I think, to read through this, because you get the hits, you get them back as a JSON, you see that this was Shake It Off from a certain album, and when I listen to it, but I like using the clients because then I can process the data a little bit better. Same for these aggregations, like you can run the same aggregation I showed in here, and all the way at the end, it gives you the same, live content of which artists you listen to and how you can sum it up. But if you want to make it look a little bit prettier, that's where Kibana would come in. And I have made Spotify Wrapped Iulia's version. Now, this doesn't show much because it's set to the last 15 minutes, but if I go from January 2024 until January 2025, this is my Wrapped for the year. And you can make whatever fields that you think of. I made a nice map one showing like where I was traveling and where I was listening to the most. As you can see, the Netherlands, because I live there, has like a lot more heat, but it's also a Wrapped of like where you've been over the past year, just from your Spotify data. There's listening time per week, so not just the regular, you have 100 hours over the entire year. And also, as I go over the year, I can see what I was listening to at those certain points. So we have, again, Hozier, Hozier, Hozier. And then when Linkin Park's album came out, it switches colors, and all of a sudden, that was like everything I listened to. So it's a bit more nuanced. And I think in the summer, where was it? There's like even some Charlie XCX in there, if there's any other Gen Zs here. So you get to see, thank you. You get to see like a few more things in there that wouldn't get picked up by just like throwing it into a Gen AI album model. You get the top artists by times played and hours of time play. You can make, pie charts, whatever your heart desires. And you can also see your top song, not just the way Spotify used to do it as a ranking, but in terms of like every single month, what was your favorite song? Anything you can think of, you can basically make it because you have access to the data directly. And not just that, just by doing it once, this is now my wrapper, so to say, for whatever I want to look at. So if I say, let's look at 2023 till 2024 instead. I used to work at a company where I went to Sweden a lot in that year. So I traveled there for conferences. I can see that that's what I did. And apparently I listened to twice as much music. Again, I think this is just Hozier, the light blue, so I was a bit more consistent. And the albums, the pie charts look a little bit different. But you can do this for whatever analysis you want to do. And because you mentioned Taylor Swift earlier, I'm not a big Taylor Swift person, but my colleague is. So she gave me her data. Let's put it back to 2024. to 2025, she listened to 400 hours of mostly Taylor Swift. So I made this specific dashboard for her of like the eras, which is a big thing. So you can see like which albums she listened to. Like these ones I think came out a little bit ago, so it's very impressive. There's, consistency in there. There's the different albums with like the specific color of the theme or whatever. And this was really big with my Taylor Swiftie colleagues, because then everyone kept sending me their data and they were like, I want one. So you get that social aspect back again of like sharing this with different people and competing on who has the most points or whatever. So this is something that you can follow along if you want. You saw how you can download your data and you can immediately get into it and calculate your dashboards as well, so to say. And the way that we make these dashboards is also pretty simple. So if you've worked with a drag and drop dashboarding tool, you've probably worked with all, to be honest. But basically you have all the keys that have been automatically brought in by Elastic when we did the mapping, and we just sort it by the top values we have in here. So I have like the top 8 albums that she listened to, ranked by amount of seconds that she listened to. And you can change the colors, you can do whatever you want in here. What I think is cool is that, if we look at one of these ones, when we look at the sum, you can look at different calculations that are already included in there. So if you wanted to do this strictly in code, you probably have to make those formulas yourself. With Elastic, these are either aggregations, as we've seen in the initial queries, or when you're doing the dashboard, you can also do them in here. So I'm summing up all the milliseconds played for all the entries that match the artist name. And we're also recognizing that this is a duration, so it changes it from milliseconds to hours, so it's a little bit more palatable and easy to digest. So you can check that out. You can change the colors, you can do as many things as you want in here. You can say, you can look at, I don't know if it starts from 2020. Okay, it's still Taylor Swift. Even if we go back over the past 5 years, the hours increase, but the distribution does not. But it's a very cool way of interacting with your data, I think. So what can we learn from this kind of experiment, so to say? People like data analysis. Let me get the next slide. People like data analysis. It's becoming more popular. I'm a data scientist by training. I did a lot of machine learning in my studies, and I used to give talks about AI back when this was the kind of content that we were discussing, like aggregations, and this doesn't even have machine learning in there, but it's seen as a cool magical trick. However, with the start of Gen AI that we've had over the last year, it has become a bit more difficult because it's getting more prevalent and you kind of see it everywhere. But I think this is one of the good examples of it can kind of dilute a good thing when a particular question is about precision specifically, literally a list of the top things that I listen to is a simple calculation. Sometimes just let it be a simple calculation. There's no need to overuse it. And people still react to a genuine product or a genuine, in this case, literally math calculation. So if you're curious about any of your data, I have my Garmin data, I have my Aura data, I have my grocery shopping. So you can think of it, you can make a whole model that shows why you eat and how you sleep and how everything interacts together. And it might look like a really cool personal assistant. There will not be any AI in there. There would literally just be me throwing my data into a cluster and running some aggregations and some queries on it. So yeah, there's a space for it, there's a place for it, but in terms of, don't use it for everything. And I think I am a little bit early, so we still have a bit of questions time. Thank you.
Thank you, Iulia. I promise I said Taylor Swift without even knowing she was going to come up. I just know she's big.
She is, as you can see, 600 hours worth
I've
of
never
big.
heard of Charlie
XCX.
That one.
Yeah.
I think I'm showing my age here.
Brat Summer.
But
You
I'm
haven't
glad,
heard about
I'm
Brat
glad
Summer.
Linkin Park took a spot.
Thank you. I'm going to the concert in a few
Sorry?
weeks. I'm going to the concert in a few weeks. I'm really excited.
Of
Linkin Park.
Oh, I thought Charlie.
No.
Whatever. Okay, so cool. So we do have a few minutes for questions, if you do have any. Maybe, did you ever figure out why a vampire?
No, I didn't.
That was so
and
random.
like mine was somewhat accurate, but I've had friends who came to me and was like, I've never listened to this band, I've never heard of them, I don't know where it came from, so it was just literal hallucinations.
Yeah, I like the last bit where don't overuse Gen AI. Can be useful, but
Thought you would.
yeah. Sorry, there was a question. Yep.
Hey, so great talk. Thank you very much. Very fun topic. Is there any way to access the template for the Elastic?
Yes, so my whole thing is on GitHub, all the calculations and the notebooks that kind of walks you through it. And I also wrote a blog about it on our Search Labs. Don't have it open, but there's a blog explaining how the whole thing works. And you can just run Elastic for free locally if you want to try it, and then you can integrate it with it. So it's, again, the open source version, because this doesn't use any of the ML features. It's all free, so you can just spin it up, dump your data in, and generate this for yourself if you want to, and then shut it off. So it's fully replicable. You can, I think I have like a, you can connect with me at least on LinkedIn, I think is this one, but then you can check out the GitHub and, oh, no, well, you can scan this one later.
Can we get the slides up again?
Oh, yeah, there you go. Cool. So yeah, I do encourage you to try it out. I hope I made the instruction pretty followable, or just be like my colleagues and send me a dump of your data, I guess, and I'll generate it. Cool. All right.
Cool. Any other questions? Did you get your boss's data?
He doesn't use Spotify. He's one of those. He's like,
Okay.
oh, I don't get the point. Just download your data. No.
Okay. Again, thanks a lot, Iulia.
Thank you.
Please, another round of applause for showing us
Thank you very
the
much.
top 10.